15 Things You Didn't Know About John D Rockefeller. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome back to another amazing video. Today we're finding out more about one of the most famous business magnates of all time, John D Rockefeller. Rockefeller grew up in a modest home in Richford, New York, and then began his career in business as a bookkeeper when he was 16 years old. One of his earliest ambitions was to make $100,000 and to live for 100 years. He nearly managed 100 years, dying aged 97, but he more than exceeded $100,000 in earnings. When inflation is adjusted, Rockefeller was worth the equivalent of $329 billion in 1913. Because Alux.com is dedicated to becoming the world's best resource on the world's most successful and influential business people, you don't get much more famous than Rockefeller. So here are 15 things you didn't know about him. Number 1. Rockefeller's first salary was 50 cents a day. When John D Rockefeller joined a small firm called Hewitt & Tuttle as a bookkeeper in 1855, he was paid 50 cents a day. He earned $50 in his first 3 months of work when he was 16, which is the equivalent of $1,000 in today's money. Number 2. The Rockefeller Center was going to be an opera house. The stock market crash of 1929 ruined the Rockefeller family's plans for their building because it led to the Metropolitan Opera to pull out of the deal. Rockefeller went into creating the building knowing that he was likely going to have to fund it himself, so he did. The Rockefeller Center would become the largest private building project ever created and opened 2 years after Rockefeller's death. Number 3. Rockefeller's mother taught him that willful waste makes woeful want. Rockefeller's early life was turbulent, and his father Bill was a philanderer, bigamist, and frequently absent. His mother, a devout Baptist, was the more stable influence in his life. He was taught to do household chores at a young age and looked after the neighbors' turkeys for money. He was so good at it that he was able to lend small sums to people as a young boy. She encouraged him to give money to the church, too, and a preacher told him to make as much money as he could and give away as much as he could. This formed his financial plan for life, and he became one of the first and most prominent philanthropists. Number 4. The faithful Baptist never touched a drop of alcohol throughout his life. Growing up in a religious household and continuing to faithfully follow religion, Rockefeller was very devout. Baptists traditionally don't drink, supporting prohibitionism, and Rockefeller was one of them. He even wrote a letter about prohibitionism when it was repealed, lamenting the fact that our best citizens have openly ignored prohibition. Number 5. By the 1870s, Rockefeller's oil company owned 90% of the world's oil refining industry. John D Rockefeller founded Standard Oil in 1869 and expanded it to the point where he was the biggest in Ohio. By monopolizing the railroads, Rockefeller managed to overtake his competitors and infuriate them simultaneously. His efforts brought many ordinary Americans affordable oil and helped him make a 90% share of the entire industry. Number 6. His father was a traveling con man. The press made a lot of effort to find out as much information about John D's distant father, Bill Rockefeller, as they could. He was a traveling botanic physician, selling people useless potions, who lived a nomadic existence. He had children with his mistress and was often known as Devil Bill. A reward was offered by Joseph Pulitzer to anyone who could find out revealing information about Devil Bill in the hope of publishing Rockefeller's embarrassing secret. Number 7. Rockefeller gave away the majority of his money to charity. The list of charities and causes that Rockefeller gave to is extremely long. By the time he was 20, he was giving away 10% of his income. Throughout his life, he would give to Baptist churches, colleges, African American groups, abolitionist causes, the University of Chicago, and Baptist missionaries throughout the world. He even established his own General Education Board in 1903, which went on to support African American schools in the South. Number 8. In his final years, Rockefeller would give dimes to everyone he met. Rockefeller's charitable givings were usually very substantial, including giving $250 million to the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health, but some were more minor. Rockefeller became known for giving every adult he passed a dime and every child a nickel wherever he went. Even his wealthy friends would get a nickel. He didn't discriminate. Number 9. Laws were changed in America in response to Rockefeller monopolizing the oil industry. Rockefeller's business tactics were unscrupulous and included undercutting his competitors, buying out his rivals, pushing for discounts on oil shipments, and making secret, shady deals. New York World magazine called Standard Oil the most cruel, impudent, pitiless, and grasping monopoly in the world. And an anti-monopoly law called the Sherman Antitrust Act was established in 1890 to try and prevent Rockefeller and other corporations from using the same tactics again. It didn't work particularly well, and Rockefeller just adapted to the changes, as business people often do. He openly contested the criticism of his business, saying that, in a business so large as ours, some things are likely to be done which we cannot approve. Number 10. Rockefeller and his company have been depicted as an octopus, emperor, and snake in the press. The American press disliked Rockefeller because they viewed him as the ultimate symbol of corporate greed, so they didn't shy away from criticizing him heavily. In 1906, a satirical cartoon in Puck magazine showed Rockefeller as a snake alongside the then-president Theodore Roosevelt. Standard Oil was shown as a sinister octopus, holding on to some of the most symbolic buildings in Washington, and Rockefeller himself was lambasted in Puck magazine again when they depicted him as a stern-looking emperor, lording over the entire oil industry. Knowing Rockefeller, he probably took it all as a compliment. Number 11. Rockefeller attributes his vast wealth to his wife's guidance. His mother was a major influence, and his wife proved to be her equal. Rockefeller was no doubt a great businessman, but he's quoted as attributing his success entirely to his wife. Rockefeller said that her judgment was always better than mine. Without her keen advice, I would be a poor man. He married American abolitionist and philanthropist Laura Celestia Spellman in 1864, and they had 5 children together, but she sadly didn't outlive him, dying of a heart attack in 1915. Interested in finding out who Rockefeller built an alliance with? Check out 15 Things You Didn't Know About the Rothschilds. Number 12. When Rockefeller's son went into university, he was much more careful with money than his contemporaries. Brought up with his father's careful financial influence, John D Rockefeller Jr. went to Brown University with a good head on his shoulders. Initially intending to study at Yale, his father pushed him towards a Baptist university instead, where he studied alongside other very wealthy sons. According to a book about the women in the Rockefeller family, the young Rockefeller was notably scrupulous with his money, just like Dad. Number 13. Rockefeller and his wife hated the summer house that their son helped to build. The colossal Rockefeller Kykut estate overlooking the Hudson River was a bit of a disaster from the start. Senior and Junior clashed over the construction and compromised by enlisting the help of many different architects. It turned out to be a classic case of too many cooks, and the end result was considered ugly, with small windows and low ceilings. When it was completed in 1914, Rockefeller Sr. and his wife were unhappy, so he spent another 5 years rebuilding it to their own specifications. When it was finished, Mrs. Rockefeller had passed, and the project was 45 times over budget. Number 14. He paid soldiers to take his place in the Civil War. Rockefeller received a pardon from fighting in the Civil War because he was such a significant business figure, not to mention the only breadwinner in his vast family. He wanted to fight, though, and was a fervent abolitionist, so he sent substitutes in his place so he could play his part. This was a common practice at the time amongst wealthy men, and he actually profited from the Civil War in the end, so he did more than make his money back. Number 15. Rockefeller celebrated the anniversary of starting his first job with more zeal than his own birthday. Rockefeller attributed his success to his wife, but he also attributed it to landing his very first 50-cent-a-day job. September 26th was Job Day in the Rockefeller Company, and he would commemorate the day every year until his death. The roots of this were perhaps superstitious, as he believed that all my future seemed to hinge on this day. I often tremble when I ask myself the question, what if I had not gotten the job? Has there ever been a business person more ferociously determined and intelligent than John D Rockefeller? He made oil an affordable commodity, completely took over the industry, and brought it to the masses. Not to mention he gave away $500 million to charitable causes. Despite being consistently lambasted in the press, he only ever took it as encouragement that he was doing the right thing for his business and his family. How would you continue Rockefeller's legacy? Would you be just as aggressive and use underhand deals to make your product cheaper? Or would you be more concerned about your public image? Oh, you're still here? Well, here's another fact about John D Rockefeller just for you. Former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill wanted to write his autobiography. As well as being the leader of a country, Churchill was the author of 42 books, but his price was too high for Rockefeller. Yes, that's right. Churchill wanted an advance of $250,000, but Rockefeller clearly didn't think it was worth it because he turned him down. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to Alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.